I'm starting with the man in the mirror. Oh yeah, I'm asking him to change his ways. And no podcast gonna make me feel better. If you wanna make the world a better place, take a listen to our podcast and make a change. Na 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 na. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I am Wyatt Brower.
And I'm Rhett Brower.
And you are with the Brower Brothers. On this segment of the podcast, we like to talk about a very unique thing. What is it, Rhett?
Movies.
Yes.
But we don't just talk about movies. We also like to write sequels to the movies we talk about.
And then give you a little sneak peek of that sequel so the world knows what they're missing out on.
What movie are we talking about today, Wyatt?
It's a very special movie for me specifically. We'll get into that later, but it's called Jumper. Coming out in 2008 and starring Hayden Christensen and Rachel Bilson, this movie is about love, action, and teleportation.
Yeah, one of my favorite childhood movies. Can't say the same now that I've rewatched it a ton.
Now that I've seen other movies, this is an interesting one to look back on.
Yeah.
I don't want to give it too much lead in just because there's a lot to cover, a lot of ground to cover in this one. So we should jump right in.
The sun peeks over the Egyptian horizon as a man stands on the stone head of the Sphynx. Looking out across the desert, dramatic music plays as the voice of Hayden Christensen begins narration.
Let me tell you about my day so far. Coffee in Paris, surfed the Maldives, took a little nap on Mount Kilimanjaro. Oh yeah, and I got digits from this Polish chick in Rio. And then I jumped back for the final quarter of the NBA Finals, courtside of course. And all that was before lunch. I could go on, but all I'm saying is, I'm standing on top of the world. We are off to a bad start here.
Bad start with Hayden Christensen.
Oh boy. I know that they were trying to make him sound exponentially cooler than the rest of us, but no matter where you wake up in the world, you're not going to see the NBA Finals before lunch.
Yeah,
that's just poor writing.
And if he just woke up, why did he need to take a nap?
Well, clearly he's waking up early.
Yeah, he must be waking up. Well, yeah, I guess if it's before lunchtime. If he must have woken up at like 1 a.m.
And also, why is it cooler to get the number of a Polish girl who is in Rio than just getting the number from a Brazilian girl who's in Rio?
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
That's so just weird. It's just a weird call.
Hayden Christensen, to me, specifically the Jumper character seems more of the type that would have prejudice. Like, I feel like he would be like, I got digits from this Polak in Rio.
Or also like, I found the one girl in Rio that was whiter than the rest of them, and that's the one that I talked to.
Yeah.
But how is he able to do all these things? We're educated with a flashback. Taking us to the halls of a junior high in Ann Arbor, Michigan for some reason, we are formally introduced to David Rice. The narration warmly states, "I used to be a chump like you," referring to the audience, of course, as David prepares to talk to Millie Harris, his crush. The narration gives some more context about his life, explaining that he's an only child, living with his drunk and possibly abusive father. His mother ran off when he was only 5 years old, and they haven't heard from her since.
I feel like they only set the movie in... All right, so I know that there's a book.
Yeah.
Is that set in Ann Arbor, Michigan?
I don't know. I didn't check too far into the book. All I know is that the book is significantly different than the movie.
Because I feel like they just like Google search like where does it snow, and they're like Michigan, and they're like, all right, fucking put it in Michigan.
Where might it get cold in the United States?
Yeah, because they need snow and ice for the fucking scene later on.
For the inciting incident.
Yeah. David approaches Millie at her locker, which is full of pictures of different cities. David comments on this, to which Millie responds, "If you have a dream, you might as well dream big." After no dream was actually discussed. But knowing that she likes cities, David has weirdly bought her a gift, something that he presents to her at the end of the school day while they wait for their buses. The gift is a snow globe with the Eiffel Tower in it, a clear reference to Paris because of her love for cities. She's a fan of the gift, and the two share a moment. That is until the film's favorite bumbling idiot arrives. Mark, the school bully, who looks way older than David and Millie, shows up and snags the snow globe from Millie's hand, calling David Rice Rice Bowl.
Stupid.
He begins to pick on him, shaking the snow globe and refusing to give it back. Finally, after Millie begs him, Mark decides to concede, pretending to hand it to David before throwing it onto the iced-over river beside the school.
This was one of the worst film depictions of bullying I think I've ever seen, because First of all, yeah, his name's David Rice, but Rice Bowl is just like, that's not cool. That's like not a good slam. Could have been like, your mom ran away, you loser.
Yeah.
But instead, it's like, I'm going to name you after a balanced dish.
Yeah.
Also, the whole scene where he's doing this, he's not really bullying David. He stole Millie's gift.
He stole it out of her hand and
Yeah.
threw it into the river.
And then the scene where she's like, give it back to him, Mark. Come on, give it back to him. She clearly didn't want the gift.
Yeah. Well, this weird kid who only wore a hoodie with his hood up the whole time his character was introduced.
He was like 13 years old, but he looked like he had been on meth for 7 years.
Thought he was 15.
Either way. Mark was 30 in the scene.
The younger kid, Mark, looked older than
Old
Mark later in the movie.
Mark and Millie argue over the comedic value of the prank, and with not an adult in sight, David walks onto the river in order to retrieve the snow globe. And surprisingly enough, he makes it to the gift and securely grabs it. Even he's surprised. However, on his way back across the ice, tragedy strikes. Falling through the top layer, David is thrust into the freezing river below, the current still active beneath the ice. Pushing him further and further downstream, there's no opening above him and no chance of escape. He is sure to drown in this river. But when all feels lost, David is suddenly no longer beneath the ice, but on solid land. Realizing that he's not submerged, David looks up but does not see classmates or the school. Instead, he sees only books. Somehow materializing across town in the Ann Arbor library, David stands up, still dripping wet, and walks home.
He gets to his house, and his dad, played by Michael Rooker, tries to have an ordinary conversation with him, but David is uninterested. He even has the audacity to deny his father's request for him to do chores, running upstairs and locking the door to his bedroom. His dad tries to open the door, begging his son to let him in, knowing that an ass-whooping is on the itinerary. When his dad inevitably gets in, David senses danger, and poof, he's gone. Just as his father opens his bedroom door, David has been transported back to the library. After a second, he teleports back.
It's at this point that David realizes he has an out. Filled with angst, he decides that his father isn't cool enough for him, and being that his dad is the only person to see him following his fall into the river, the rest of the town assumes that he drowned earlier in the day. So following in the footsteps of his mother, he leaves poor Michael Rooker by his lonesome, grabs some apparent drug dealing cash that he kept hidden in his room, and makes a break for it.
After he teleported the second time to the library, he audibly says, "Did I just teleport?"
Yeah, he's already teleported. He just died earlier, basically. He's under the river, and he teleports into the library. And he doesn't even seem phased. He just like looks around and is like, "Oh, that's weird," and then walks home. But
Maybe
then when
that could have been because of like the traumatic experience of almost drowning under the ice.
but then he teleports again, the second time, right?
Mm-hmm.
When he's in the library and he's like, "Oh, did I just teleport?"
Yeah. There's a lot of spoon-fed lines that explain
What he's feeling.
what
He has
he's feeling.
He has a lot of soliloquies.
Yeah. And everyone thinks he's dead. The police come to Michael Rooker's house and tell Michael Rooker that his son died today in the river. And Michael Rooker's like, "No, the little asshole's upstairs." And then he jumps away again.
Yeah, really, David Rice is a bit of a sociopath. And
Yeah.
this leads him down a dark road, as you're about to find out in the next pages.
Heading to New York City, David is able to use his drug dealer cash to pay for a room at a dingy per-week apartment building. The attendant gives him a key and makes him promise no weird stuff. David agrees, and then at this arbitrary moment in time, we get a title card.
Jumper.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't have the title card when he jumped. They just have it when he's laying in his dirty apartment.
Or how about when he's standing on the Sphynx and delivers the "Let me tell you about my day so far"?
Yeah, why?
line?
Yeah, why didn't they have it after that?
I don't know. That would have actually made more sense because that would have shown like a change in time. After this one, there is no change in time. He's still a kid. Over the next few years, David practices his abilities and learns how to jump. Spending his days in Central Park, he struggles to figure it out, but eventually becomes confident enough to devise a plan to rob a bank. Only capable of jumping places that he has seen before, he asks to use the bathroom of the bank. On his walk to the toilet, he catches a glimpse of the vault. Bingo. Later that night, after the bank is closed, David, from within his apartment, jumps into the vault and begins his heist. Filling his room with cash, it's clear that David will be quite alright on his own. And as it turns out, alright is an understatement.
He stole a box full of pennies. That was one of the main things laying on his bed.
Every cent counts.
Yeah, it was a $25 box of pennies. It was like the rolls of pennies. That must have weighed a ton.
Also, they paint a really dark picture about humanity because they allude to the idea that this is something that everybody would do instantly, is rob a bank. Like there is no I mean David's a well-known creep, but there is no middleman. There isn't like a scene where he jumps into the girl's locker room or anything like that. He goes right from learning how to jump to committing a federal offense.
Yeah, he jumped. He used jumping to. First thing he did was save his life. Second thing he did was ruin his dad's life.
Yep.
Third thing he did was fuck with his middle school crush by giving her the gift that she presumed he died with.
Oh yeah, we didn't even write that. Yeah, there's a scene right before he leaves. He jumps to Millie's house and leaves the snow globe on her swing outside.
Yeah.
Which, wouldn't that just be like something that she is super traumatized by? Like the ghost of this kid left the snow globe on her swing?
Mm-hmm.
Like that would cause. That's like the beginning of a horror movie.
Yeah. Well, that shit happens in a lot of horror movies.
The swing was moving too.
His very next thing he did was rob a bank. He's just a bad person.
Yeah, he's not a good person. And they didn't try hard enough to make the dad a bad person. Like Michael Rooker's just like in the movie, he's just like a blue collar working class dad. He's got some emotional scars because the mother disappeared. Yeah. And he was forced to raise this little sociopath on his own. But even like when he's like trying to talk to his son, sure, maybe his delivery isn't the warmest in the world, but he's still just like, hey man, how was your day at school? Why are you all wet? I care about you.
Yeah, he asked why he was soaking wet. He was like, why are you all wet? It's the middle of winter. And David Rice was like, fuck you, Dad. Fuck you, Dad.
You don't get me.
We're back to modern day, and David, now played by Hayden Christensen, is in a kick-ass loft at the top of a Manhattan high-rise. The narration explains that David has made his own little career out of bank robbing. He has no sort of direction or purpose and simply jumps from place to place, surfing, drinking, and having sex. His life rules, but little does he know that someone is on his tail.
So also during this little chapter of the movie, David lives in the apartment, right? And they make a point for him to jump into his little room full of bank cash. And he's like, oh, I always planned on paying it back. Which he didn't, obviously. But
how would he?
He'd jump back in and maybe he's investing.
Does
too.
he say that again when he's an adult?
Pretty much. Yeah, when he's an adult, he was like, I always planned on paying it back. But in the loft, there's two things I want to talk about here. First, they make a point to have him turn on the news and he sees people stranded in a flooding river. And he changes the channel.
Yeah. They're like, oh, there's no way to get to him. He doesn't just change the channel. The news is like, oh, there's no way to get to him and help him. And he does like this little like, he practically looks at the camera.
He gets a Jim Halpert.
Yeah.
But he lives in Manhattan, which is one of the most crowded areas on Earth. And he tries to keep it subtle that he can jump. And he leaves his apartment, goes downstairs in the elevator, brings an umbrella. It's a sunny day in New York. And his doorman is like, oh, you don't need that umbrella. And he's like, oh, you never know. And then he walks
some really killer Hayden Christensen lines, too. Oh, how they doing?
How they doing?
Talking about
the sport ball.
The sport, yeah. Oh, just in case, I'll keep my umbrella.
Yeah, just in case. And then he walks outside and then jumps. If he didn't have to do all that. He could have just jumped from his house. It was stupid.
It was. I don't know why he didn't just jump from his house.
It would have been easier. The doorman isn't going to be like, I haven't seen that guy in a while. He makes such good small talk. How they doing?
How they doing?
He didn't ask how you doing. It was how they doing.
How they doing?
After his first robbery, Roland Cox, his actual name, played by Samuel L. Jackson, has been hunting him down. Seemingly humoring the idea of a jumper right off the bat, he claims to be part of the NSA, but it seems like a lie. Being unable to catch him for 8 years, they finally figure out who's been doing all these robberies. Roland's underlings call him to break the news as he's in some faraway jungle, murdering another jumper. As it turns out, this is his actual day job. Belonging to a group known as Paladins, Roland and his comrades murder jumpers because the Bible says so. Roland is ecstatic and boards the next flight to New York. So right off the bat with Samuel L. Jackson's character, they try to be like, ooh, he's a bad guy. Look at his blonde hair.
He's got white hair.
White hair, sorry. And 8 years later, he's just in a jungle. They don't say where he's at, and he's killing another jumper. And he uses like this sneaky little knife.
ritually unwraps this knife from a cloth and stabs this jumper in the heart.
Saying like some Bible verse. It's like they took that right from Pulp Fiction. It was like, it was cool that time. It was cool when he did it here.
It'll be cool again.
They'll never stop being cool.
Yeah.
And they never go into what the paladins actually believe in.
Yeah, no.
They're just like, only God
should have the power to be everywhere at once. He just keeps saying that line.
Yeah, so we're going to systematically execute all of these people.
Breaking into David's apartment, the two have a bit of a standoff. The tension is eventually broken, however, when Roland pulls out his evil nunchucks, equipped with tasers, and starts kicking the shit out of David. It is clear that electricity is the kryptonite for jumpers, as David is unable to jump with, quote, 10,000 volts running through his brain. However, despite Roland's best efforts and awesome nunchuck skills, David is able to jump away.
Am I under arrest? Well, if you're not the police, and I'm not under arrest, I think I'd like you to leave. Emotion.
Yeah.
And when people want to kill you, where do you lead them? Home! After being gone for 8 years, David returns to Ann Arbor, Michigan. Over the last few years, he has periodically tormented his father by jumping in and out of the house to gather forgotten materials. But as he looks upon his dad in the light of day, he seems to have a bit of regret for the way he's treated him. But not enough regret to say hello.
Yeah, the first thing he does is the guy's about to kill him, and he jumps right back into his bedroom at his dad's house. His dad runs up the stairs, door still locked for some reason.
He's like, David, I don't know if you're like a ghost, or basically talking to the ghost of his son. And it's like, please just come home. Please, I want to see you again. I'm sorry for everything. And then he like mentions like, maybe I'm crazy. And all David says is, you're not crazy. And then he teleports away. Like, it's not common knowledge for everybody that people jump. So this is just really fucked up for him to do to his dad.
Yeah, and it's not like he even jumps away to get away. He just jumps to outside the house, and then he starts taking a little
stroll about.
A little tour around his neighborhood, and then hunts down this girl he had a crush on in middle. This girl he had a crush on in middle school.
Well, that's the next line.
Oh yeah. Instead, he is on a mission for some ass, boldly knocking on the door of his ex-crush Millie Harris's house. He asks her mother where she is. She responds that Millie is working at the local bar, to which David asks,
Really? She's still here?
David makes his way to this bar that is super crowded, like far too crowded for a suburban bar in Michigan in the winter. David sits at the booth by himself, teetering on the decision as to whether or not he's going to talk to the bartender, Millie, or go home. Finally, he decides that seeing her is enough, and he gets up and attempts to leave, but unfortunately, he is stopped by an old friend.
He literally says out loud, all right, you've seen her, and then starts to leave.
Yeah.
Also, this bar is packed like St. Patrick's Day Chicago.
Yeah, it's way too packed.
It's insane. It's shoulder to shoulder.
But it must not be winter wide because nobody's wearing a coat but him.
And I don't know. I'm pretty sure on the TV they weren't even watching a Michigan University game. They were watching MSU, which is even weirder to me for some reason.
I guess I didn't even notice that. There was so much more
pressing issues.
Yeah, I just was like, I'm baffled at the idea. It's like, oh, this guy just tried to kill him, knows exactly who he is, and it's like, you know what?
I'm gonna get laid.
I'm gonna get. Now's a good time to go home.
That old friend is Mark, the asshole that threw a snow globe, and he's naturally at the bar, still a total dick. Recognizing David, he becomes belligerent, yelling, "Hey, Rice Bowl's back!" and attracting all sorts of attention. Millie arrives and explains that she saw David staring at her all day and was just waiting for him to come talk to her. The two share a moment before Mark grabs Millie's ass, leading David to punch him in the face. The two fight, and David really gets the shit kicked out of him by this drunken idiot. But tackling him through a fence and getting away from the crowd, he sees an opportunity to use his powers. Teleporting him into a bank vault, the one he stole from in the beginning, he leaves Mark inside, framing him for an actual felony.
Yeah, I don't... This Mark guy is a piece of shit. He's a sociopath too. He, as far as everyone is concerned, is responsible for killing this kid by proxy. He threw the snow globe onto the ice. David walked on the ice, falls in, drowns, presumed dead, and it's Mark's fault, really. And then Mark, drunken idiot. It's not like he's clearly not even traumatized by the event because he sees this guy.
He's actually, we kind of paint him in a bad light. He's trying to be nice and friendly with David.
No, he's not. he's like picking on him again like they're in middle school. And then,
guess.
and then like, that's what I got anyways. I was just, that's another thing. It's like, if I was responsible for killing somebody, I might like, you know, be a mess or change my life around. But instead, this guy's just like an asshole still and instantly starts a fight with him.
No, David threw the first punch.
He threw the first punch, but it was...
David attacked him.
That's true, but I don't know.
Here's my biggest issue with the whole thing. Why the fuck didn't anybody mention that he drowned in the river 8 years ago? He gets back to Ann Arbor and everybody's just like, oh, it's David, he's back. He died.
Yeah.
That was the whole point of him being able to get away, was he died in the river. But nobody remembers that. Why?
Yeah, I know. Nobody says anything about it. I mean, even Millie was like, oh, I saw you staring at me for 45 minutes. She could have gone up and talked to him too.
Yeah. Yes.
Because, you know, he is literally presumed dead.
And also, there's a scene where she's like, oh, what do you do for a living? And he's like, oh, I'm in banking. And she's like, you're not in banking. You failed algebra. She remembered that he failed algebra in junior high, but not that he fucking died.
Well, she didn't think he died, or I don't know, maybe something.
His ghost left the snow globe.
Yeah, I know.
What the hell? And I'm gonna circle back. I'm circling way back. Why did he teleport to the library? They didn't make a point for him to be a bookworm. They weren't like, oh, this kid reads. What was the point of the library? And he teleported there twice.
Twice. I don't know. I mean, you know, when you're about to die, your life flashes before your eyes.
Maybe and you just see the Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah. Maybe there was something that happened in the library that they didn't bother to discuss, or they cut for time.
He was cut for time. Maybe that's where his mom would take him when he was a kid.
Maybe, because his mom said when he was later in the movie, when he was 5 years old.
We don't talk about her.
David returns, and he and Millie hit it off. David brings up her vague dream of cities and offers to take her on a vacation to Rome. And, as one does, when they're reintroduced to a clearly violent, socially awkward, and until recently presumed dead man from junior high, she instantly agrees. The two land in Rome, their arrival sensually serenaded by the fray as they get to their hotel and have PG-13 movie sex.
Oh, it's hot.
Yeah.
I have to come clean about something. Rewatching this movie, it was like I came upon a core memory. Jumper, the sex scene in Jumper is my first movie boner. This is a very special movie for me. I think there should be like some like trumpet fanfare with that. My first movie boner. Bum, ba, da, bum, 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 bum. It's a gold medal for Jumper.
Yeah. It was a sexy scene. And the fray is, I'm a huge Fray fan. Big Fray fan over here.
What was the song that was playing?
Look After You. I'm pretty sure it's what it's called.
I don't remember the melody for that one. I know in Transformers.
Yeah, Transformers.
Dark of the Moon or
yeah,
whatever.
No, the second
Yeah.
Is it the second one?
Don't let me go.
Never
Too long.
Never say never. Yeah, that is another Fray song.
Same type of vibe.
The Fray, they own the 2000s.
They at least owned 2008. Like
yeah,
that was
they
their
did.
year. They were the kings of movies. It's a very romantic endeavor, and the new lovers travel about the city, their trip coming to a head at the famous Roman Colosseum. But unfortunately, they arrive too late. David once again shows his temper and his rage, and he storms off, eventually breaking into the Colosseum in front of everybody. She doesn't see red flag after red flag as he continues to break rules until finally he leaves her in a dungeon and attempts to break into the main courtyard of the Colosseum. She winds up waiting for a long time because as he jumps into the place where the gladiators fought, David finds himself in a fight of his own.
Real nuance there. Oh, he's a gladiator.
I know. But the scene with the police officer, if she didn't already see problems with David, with his emotionless behavior and his just strangeness, okay, I'm gonna pose something. This guy could have totally been like some manipulator, being like, "I'm David Rice from your childhood," to this traumatized girl who feels responsible for this kid's death, and then he takes her to Rome. He could have killed her. And he almost does.
Yeah, but I don't know because everybody recognized him as David Rice. It's not like he went around saying, "Hi, I'm David Rice. Hi, I'm David Rice."
Yeah, but that's stupid that they recognized him.
Why? He was 15 years old, so
he died.
Yeah, but he already had like all of his core
features.
Features, yeah.
But nobody asked.
everybody recognized it. And there must have been like a core group of people in the town being like, oh, David Rice, his father, David Rice isn't dead. David Rice isn't dead.
Yeah,
and
but
Millie.
They made it seem like his dad was crazy. Like he dissented. And he's like a pariah in the town. His wife disappears. His son dies. What's up with this guy?
Neither of those things could be his fault. The son dying is not his fault.
You don't know that for sure. The police came to his house that night, didn't they?
To tell him his son went under the river, and actually they couldn't presume him dead. Why? Because they didn't find a body. So it's like
but after 3 years, aren't you legally dead?
They probably buried an empty
8.
coffin.
That would have been an interesting scene. Him going to the grave.
The funeral, yeah. That would have made it. That would have been more powerful.
That
would have
been a better choice than the one they made.
Yeah.
Hey, no weird stuff. No weird stuff. Jumper.
Yeah, they should have. That's when it should have said Jumper. Should have been him watching his own funeral, and that's when he should have given Millie the snow globe to really fuck with her.
It also would have been. It could have been more interesting if he was no longer David Rice and he went by something else. And then she finds out you're David Rice, the kid that died. What?
Like,
oh shit.
Devin Chow Mein.
That works.
Yeah.
That's a believable name.
Then his buddy Mark could have been calling him Chow Mein Bowl.
Chow Mein Bowl. Calling him stir fry.
Stir fry. Introduced to another jumper, Griffin, played by Jamie Bell. The two are forced to take on a crew of paladins who have clandestinely broken in. The security here is awful. It's a violent fight, and David and Millie only barely make it out, only to be captured by Roman police.
Griffin is my favorite character.
He's he does a good job.
That guy was so good. I really hope Jumper didn't ruin his career.
Yeah. Two things. One, this character of Griffin was kind of hunting him the whole time because he knew he was a jumper because Griffin's a jumper.
Yeah.
But so watching the movie, I've watched it a few times, and it's like, Hayden Christensen, is he a bad actor? Or is he the product of bad movies?
Yeah, because even like Attack of the Clones, come on.
Yeah.
Even good actors, that movie was still really bad.
Yeah, and this movie really bad with good actors, Samuel Jackson and this guy
and Michael Rooker
and this guy did a good job too, but
they weren't playing David Rice.
No,
or Anakin Skywalker.
I don't know if Hayden Christensen is a good actor. I think he might. What he can do is he can cry his ass off.
Oh, he can cry like a motherfucker.
Yeah,
tears.
He can cry and scream really well. But other than that, and smolder,
He's constantly smoldering, but I think it just might be like, I don't know. Just like a caveman stare.
Yeah, real, a knuckle dragon stare.
He gives a lot of underbite.
Yeah.
You're so beautiful.
But a lot of his lines are delivered poorly. But I struggled because, some of it isn't terrible, I guess. But it's like, oh man, is this just bad writing? But I don't know.
Some of it is.
Some of it's really bad writing. A lot of it is. A lot of the other movie was too. Attack of the Clones
and Revenge of the Sith. But even he shows him when he's screaming and crying.
Yeah, he can scream and cry his ass off.
Put this guy into a really emotional state, and he delivers.
Can perform. He can deliver.
But just ordinary lines, it seems like is his bane.
Yeah, he's really
act like a normal guy. I can't.
Yeah, no, thank you. I don't know why they kept putting him in romantic situations either.
Because he's a beautiful man.
He is good looking, but he is not charismatic in the slightest.
No, he doesn't have. Imagine if Ryan Gosling played this role.
That would have been a hit movie.
Yeah,
even with the writing.
Because Ryan Gosling, there are other movies that the writing is just absurd, but he's able to make it realistic. Crazy Stupid Love.
No one agrees with him on this.
We will cover this at some point.
Wyatt hates Crazy Stupid Love.
I think it could be good. I think Ryan Gosling's character in that movie is ridiculously written. He's too cool. Same with David Rice. David Rice is supposed to be too cool. I used to be a chump like you.
I know. Why? That was a terrible... They should have cut that.
I'm walking out in the first scene of the movie. I'm out of here.
I hate it when they...
Don't insult me.
When the fourth wall is broken and they insult the audience.
David is arrested but promptly breaks free, lying to Millie and saying he was let go. Ushering her quickly into a taxi, she is beginning to lose trust in this otherwise entirely trustworthy individual. David leads Millie to the airport, where she makes him unzip his backpack, revealing an absurd amount of cash. He has lost all of her trust. And as she boards the plane, it is clear that their relationship is over. From here, David jumps to Griffin's lair, a place he followed the other jumper to during their fight with Paladins via Griffin's jump scar. Jump scars, for those of you who have not seen Jumper, or were confused or asleep during their viewing of it, jump scars are left by jumpers after they teleport, and it's like this mist, like this little crack in reality, and other jumpers can follow jumpers through it.
Other people can, right? Or just jumpers?
I think just jumpers, and then
That's
later others. Can they shoot stuff through it?
It's never discussed. I'm sure
Why
if there
the
was a
hell?
jumper video game, you could.
Why do the Paladins use nunchucks? Because wouldn't it make more sense for them to just carry guns? Because they're people. They're just normal people that can jump around. So I think I'd have a better chance of, like, why don't they set up snipers?
Oh, there's a couple questions to that effect. One, I would like to address that the jumping and the jump scar animation was really cool.
Especially at the time. It
Yeah,
was really
they
good.
did a really good job. Like the jump scars, they looked really everything. The movie visually was very good, right down to Hayden Christensen. Visually, good looking guy.
Good looking guy. Rachel Bilson, good looking. Michael Rooker, beautiful. Samuel L. Jackson, you know it.
Yeah, a really good looking movie. I thought I need to throw that out there before I forget.
The color palettes were good.
Yeah, I will say though, they did not need to credit a costume designer in the opening crawl when everyone just wore gray. Like the Paladins wore gray suits, and then
they were wearing like 2000s low-waisted jeans and shit.
Yeah,
with, like costume design.
Costume designer, but yeah, the movie good. There was a lot of effort in this movie, just in
The wrong place.
the wrong places. Like they should have focused a little bit more on story.
Just a little more.
A little bit more. But, yeah, them fighting. So they could... I didn't understand... Yeah, one, they should have just had guns and shit. I don't know why they needed to use... I guess maybe because they were called Paladins, so they only used melee weapons like it was the medieval times.
Ugh.
But they didn't really, because they had high technology stuff. But for some reason, the jumpers wouldn't just jump away. When the Paladins showed up, the jumpers would fight them. Why not just leave?
Yeah. I don't know.
They can shoot stuff through jump scars because they do it later in the movie.
They do.
Samuel Jackson does.
And the flamethrower.
Yeah.
Why not just use guns? Why not just use guns? And even when they want to use the electricity because that's like jumper kryptonite, police issued tasers.
Yeah. Maybe they're not 10,000 volts.
Oh yeah, because you need 10,000 volts.
They did drop a number on it.
Have you ever seen the videos of people getting tased though? They just drop to the ground. I kind of want to get tased.
That's true because the jumpers did not just drop to the ground when they got hit with these tasers.
No.
The Paladins had.
Unless they were like wrapped up in the little spider web of shocking.
Hayden Christensen did moan his ass off though when he was electrocuted.
I hate them.
David and Griffin begin their tumultuous relationship, teaming up to fight the Paladins, educating one another in their backstory. It is revealed that Griffin had his first jump when he was 5. Remember this, it's important. And his parents were never in the picture. He and David have a lot in common. Lost boys, no parental guidance, jumping from place to place. It's heavily spoon-fed.
The two then jump to Tokyo to do some real bro shit, stealing a car and revealing that Griffin can jump moving objects, including their new ride. David then pitches a Marvel team-up for a limited run, with the two jumpers doing hero stuff to protect David's loved ones, as they are now in trouble. This scene is such a derailment.
Yeah, it's like way too long too. It's like 15 minutes of Hayden Christensen following around this other jumper.
Yeah, because Griffin's like, I'm not going to be your friend.
And then
Hayden Christensen's like, yes, you are.
Yeah, and he just follows him
Please?
around. And, okay, this movie came out in 2008, right?
Yeah.
When did the Marvel movie start coming out? 2008,
2008.
Right? Yeah. And
He could have been an Avenger.
He could have been an Avenger. But, like, so just the Marvel... It was just funny hearing about, like, the Marvel... Him talking about Marvel, because Marvel was happening at the same time, and it was so much better.
Yeah, it was a lot better. Also,
Iron Man came out the same year as this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, he did. They go to Tokyo, right? And right before they go, Griffin's like, I'm leaving. And then he says goodbye in Chinese, and then he's like, that means goodbye in Chinese, and then he jumps away, and Hayden Christensen follows him, and he goes to Tokyo. Why not go to China? You said goodbye in Chinese.
Like we said earlier, these jumpers are prejudiced. they seem like they could be.
That was just wrong. Like,
Yeah. It was really weird.
Adios. It means goodbye in Japanese.
But the Griffin being able to jump moving objects. He's visually, like if something's moving, he can touch it and jump it to a different location, but only if it's moving.
Only if it's moving. If it's a car, he can jump it while it's moving, but if it's parked, no go. Can't move it.
I think that was just to establish that different jumpers have like different
abilities,
like different techniques that they can use to do stuff.
And Griffin is connected. He's part of the jumper community. He tells this story about another jumper that he knew that tried to jump an entire building, and Hayden Christensen was like, "Did he do it? And really? Did he what?" And he was like, "No, he's dead. It killed him because he's British."
Or did the Paladins kill him?
I think he said that
because
jumping the building.
He's not going to be trying that again, is he?
Because he's dead, isn't he?
Because he's dead, isn't it? But he
tried to jump a building.
He was the best. He was the best character in the movie.
Yeah, and
he was one of the only ones that his goals made sense. His only goal was to kill Paladins that hunted him.
Yeah,
and he was the only good character, really. I mean, besides Samuel L. Jackson, who's always a good character.
And he was really good at the actor was just good. Like he did really good at portraying it. The character there, the little guy.
Having told everyone from his falsely imprisoned cell, Mark gives Samuel L. Jackson everything he needs to know. So when David makes it back to Ann Arbor, his father has already been attacked. Jumping him to the hospital, David leaves his dad for the rest of the movie. We literally never see him again. Does he die? We don't know. I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah, Samuel Jackson, does he stab?
They don't show it.
They don't show it. Oh, it's off camera. Samuel Jackson shows up, threatens to him that he's the IRS, which he could have done better than that.
I'm here for your son.
Yeah, and then he's like, I'm here for your son. And then
I haven't seen him.
Michael Rooker's like, get out of my house, dude. And then Samuel Jackson's like, that's not going to happen. And then David Rice, Hayden Christensen, goes to the airport to get Millie.
Realizes he
missed the flight, but then instead...
I did the math wrong.
Oh, no, I did the math wrong.
I forgot the time zone change.
Yeah, he did the math wrong, because the whole thing was he needed to find where the Paladins were before Millie landed, just in case they were going to get her.
But instead he was just hanging out.
Yeah, but instead of making a plan, he hung out in Tokyo with Griffin. Then he went to pick up Millie from the airport, jumped to the airport, was like, oh man, I got the time wrong.
Darn it.
Dang it. And then jumps to his dad's house. He doesn't even go to Millie's.
For some reason, I don't know. It didn't make sense why he was going to his dad's house.
No.
It was just to show that his dad was attacked. And then from there, he jumps to Mark's prison cell. Mark is in prison.
Because he got being in a bank.
Yeah, for being in a bank vault. And there was a scene earlier where Samuel L. Jackson was like, I'm with the FBI or something. Like, he just says anything and people believe him. And Mark told him everything. And that's what he used to kill his dad. Attack his dad. We don't know if his dad's
Mark
dead.
told Samuel L. Jackson who
Rice Bowl was
and who his family was. And then Samuel Jackson goes and finds his dad and Millie too, I presume. Well, yeah, eventually. But
then David shows back up and attacks Mark in his prison cell and then just leaves him again.
Yeah, leaves him there.
Mark is totally not in the wrong for thinking that he was talking to the police.
And he teleports his dad, screaming and crying. He's doing a hell of a job, Hayden Christensen.
Yeah, he did. He did a good job. Good emotional job.
Teleports his dad to the hospital.
I need help.
Need some fucking
help.
Yeah, teleports his dad to the hospital and then just dips. Then he's just back on the street going to Millie's house.
Not crying
anymore.
And we never see Michael Rooker again.
Not a word is even uttered of him. Oh my God, we forgot a very important part.
What?
He gets away from the police in Rome because his mother frees him.
What?
David Rice.
No way.
You didn't remember that?
No.
He's locked up in the Roman jail because they're like, you murdered people in the Coliseum or some shit. It was really kind of,
where are the bodies?
where are the bodies? Because the security saw him fighting the paladins in the Coliseum, and his mother comes.
Where are the bodies?
His mother comes and lets him go, and it's like, you need to leave right now. And
Mamma mia.
yeah, he's like, Mom, why? Who the hell? Where have you been for the last 20 years of my life?
Stop it! No way.
Did you not watch the movie with me?
That doesn't seem like it happened.
It did.
The mother shows up.
Yes, when he's in Rome. That's how he gets out of the Roman Colosseum.
Turn it on. I need to see the scene because I thought that he didn't meet her until the end.
No.
What the fuck? Why did she do that?
Because why I'm bringing this up is because then Roland Cox, Samuel L. Jackson, sees a picture of his mother
And knows.
and knows who she is because she's a paladin.
They're coworkers.
Yeah, well, because you don't know.
They share a cubicle.
You don't know that till the end. But it makes sense because when she comes and lets him out of the Roman prison, she's in the all gray suit like a paladin. And Roland sees the picture of her and Michael Rooker in Michael Rooker's house, and he says something about it. I don't remember what he says. He picks it up, and it's like a aha moment. But then she's not in the final fight scene against the paladins.
There's another thing that I want to discuss while this goes on. The paladins want to kill jumpers because of God. They're like, oh, only God should have the ability to be everywhere at once. They say it like 11 times. And Samuel L. Jackson is like, all of you people are criminals. All you people do is bad shit. And he's not wrong. Out of the two jumpers that we're introduced to formally, David Rice is a bank robber, and Griffin is a killer. And like, sure, maybe the paladins forced Griffin to be a killer, but he's a killer nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
He spends his whole life...
And a thief.
And a thief. Yeah, he's got to be a thief. He steals cars. Yep.
He steals all sorts of shit throughout the movie.
They're not good guys. They're not like using their teleportation to save people. They made a point to show that they don't.
Yeah. Because the paladins' goals are really never laid out. They're just like, God. But it could be like, oh, every single jumper has been evil.
Yeah, from the history of time, we've tracked it. And, I mean, from what I've gathered, he's not wrong. David Rice is a bad guy. He treats people horribly. He lies. He steals. He kills. And he does whatever he wants to better his own situation, no matter who it hurts in the process. And throughout the way too long movie, he doesn't learn a thing. He has zero arc. He just keeps getting what he wants, doing the wrong thing. Okay, we've clarified. We've rewatched the scene. His mother does come save him, and he does recognize his mother.
Yeah.
This is even stupider than I thought.
I can't believe you forgot this scene.
Maybe I repressed it. It's upsetting. There's no emotional stakes with anything. I don't care if anyone loses. I don't care if anyone dies. Only Griffin and Michael Rooker. And Michael Rooker...
He might have died.
They wrote his character out of the movie. They're just like,
once he served his purpose, he was over.
Finally, David jumps to Millie's apartment and breaks into her house. After she begs him to leave, he shows her his powers, which only freak her out more. She asks again for him to get out of her house, to which Hayden Christensen delivers one of the rapiest lines in movie history. "This might hurt a little, okay?" he says as he lunges at her. It's a horrible miscommunication. The only reason that he doesn't look like a total villain is because the paladins come in the nick of time. Having a machine that allows them to travel through jump scars, opening portals between two worlds, they duke it out simultaneously in Griffin's lair as well as Millie's apartment.
Yeah.
Classic David Rice fashion. As soon as trouble comes, he leads him to other people that he cares about.
Yeah, he shows Millie that he can jump. And then he's like, all right, this might hurt a little. And he grabs her and jumps her to Griffin's lair for some reason.
In the middle of the desert.
Yeah, in the middle of the desert. And she's just like, take me home, please.
Please.
And he, instead of taking her home, just hangs out with Griffin while she's outside.
Millie, shut up a second.
Yeah, pretty much.
Griffin, they're coming.
Yeah.
Millie, shut up. I brought a hostage.
There are awesome jump scenes and fight moments, and eventually the jumpers ward off their attackers. But just before the jump scar closes, they snag Millie and pull her into their clutches, tying her up and using her as bait.
Yeah, the fight scene's pretty cool. Griffin uses like a 4-wheeler to jump, and then he jumps to London and jumps a moving bus in, which conveniently has no people in it.
Yeah. I don't understand why he needed to jump on the 4-wheeler, but it is cool that he can jump like cars when he drives them.
Yeah. So,
Hayden Christensen was absolutely useless. Instantly
gets
incapacitated, tied up,
and
then Griffin shoots them all with flamethrowers, jumps through the jump scar, burns up other paladins, jumps back through.
Millie cuts David down, and then she's like, please take me home, to which he smolders and is like, it's always been you since we were little kids. It's always been you.
Yeah, he takes this opportunity to flirt with her. She stands there speechless, I'm sure, just
blown away.
And then Griffin jumps back. He's got their device that opens up jump scars. It's like an EMP type thing. And the jump scar is closing that they use to get there, because somehow Roland went back through the jump scar.
He was kicked back through
to get away from the flamethrower.
Yeah, and
so Griffin completely saves the day, and then right at the very last second, they shoot their grappling hook.
They lasso.
And they lasso Millie back to her apartment.
Which is where she wanted to go.
She never wanted to leave. And then Griffin's like, oh, shit.
That sucks. The Jumper Bros then end their limited run. While David prepares to storm the castle and save the damsel in distress, Griffin decides that it's better to just unibomb the joint, killing all the paladins once and for all. But due to David's love for Millie, he cannot sit idly by and allow this to happen. The two get into a fistfight that takes them across the planet. Finally, the pair end up in Chechnya, surrounded by an active conflict. So, just to further break down this idea, Griffin only wants to kill paladins. And Samuel L. Jackson and the rest of the crew are in one centralized location, and he's just like, let's blow it up.
He thinks all the paladins are in this location, except they're not, because his mom's not.
Yeah.
But regardless of that fact, he thinks all the paladins are in this centralized location, and he's like, she's already dead, bro. They killed your girlfriend.
Yeah, he's like, all right, we're going to blow him up. And then Hayden Christensen's like, what about Millie? And he's like, that sucks.
Yeah. He told him, you can't be doing this. They're going to kill everyone you love.
Everyone you love is going to die.
Everyone you love is going to die.
Isn't it?
And so he's like, I'm sorry, but we have to do this. We have to kill the paladins. And Hayden Christensen and him have a big fight. Hayden Christensen literally steals his bomb and plays like
keep away,
running and jumping all over the world. And then finally
Griffin's just like, fuck this, and starts kicking his ass.
Yeah.
And the two get into a fight. They land in Chechnya, which I guess
for some reason, I guess Chechnya is a war zone at this point. I don't know history very
there was
well,
there was like an insurgency or something happening in 2008.
Okay.
There was like an active conflict. And yeah, that's pretty much just that.
Yeah, they teleport into this guy's truck, and then that guy's truck is run over by a tank. That guy just dies.
We don't see that guy get out.
Yeah. Though the fight was even throughout, with Griffin at times actually overpowering David, the protagonist sees an opportunity, throwing his friend into a downed power line. Surrounded by hot coils, the jumper is electrocuted, incapacitated by the volts, and unable to teleport. He is bested. So, yeah.
David wins.
David wins. He throws him into it was a killer move. Throws him right into the power lines, tangles him up in it, and he's being shocked and can't teleport out.
He should be dead, but he's
probably.
not.
But they're superheroes, so I don't know. I don't know all the powers of jumpers.
But he doesn't die.
He doesn't die. He's just incapacitated. David, I don't know what he does. Throws the bomb away.
I thought they left it in the Roman Colosseum.
Did they? I don't know. The bomb,
shocking news reports. A bomb goes off in the Colosseum.
They just are like, whatever with the bomb. Griffin's incapacitated. We never see him again. And then Hayden Christensen goes to fight the paladins, and just like Griffin said, it was a trap.
Yep. Now all that stands in the way of David and his love is the dastardly Roland Cox. Teleporting to the fight scene, the paladins and the jumper duke it out one final time. It's a last-ditch effort as David is caught in a snare. Using everything he has, David is able to jump Millie's entire apartment into the river outside of Ann Arbor. Then, just like his first jump, he teleports the apartment into the library, absolutely destroying it.
proving that he's the best jumper ever.
Yeah. You can't jump a whole building. It'll kill you. And he does it.
He does it.
At least her 2-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, he jumps the apartment. It rips it right out of the side of the building, jumps it into the river. I guess all the no paladin can swim because they all drowned except Roland.
Instantly, yeah.
And then he jumps that because then Roland is going to, I don't know, he's moving in for the attack. So then he jumps the rest of the apartment back into the library with just those three.
Yeah. He, Millie, and Roland lay in the wet books. Before Roland can do any more villain shit, David jumps him to a secluded cave in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't know why jumpers weren't doing this more. Like, he literally just
dropping people?
Just jumped him. He literally just grabbed him, jumped him to a cave.
They don't have to kill anybody.
And was like, peace out, dude. He was like, what does he say? Oh, I could have dropped you to the sharks.
Could have dropped you with the sharks.
And then he jumped away, leaving Roland in this cool-ass cave
Roland's
above
sitting there
the Grand Canyon.
Roland's like, was he flirting with me?
Yeah. David and Millie are now in love, and after some time, David is able to track down his long-lost mother. Upon his arrival, he is greeted briefly by a younger sister, and then finally his mom. It is revealed, however, that she is a paladin.
Uh-oh.
It was pretty, I mean, it was alluded to before because you only know once you've seen the movie because she's in the gray suits.
And really,
I mean, you kind of know anyways, but after his first jump at 5 years old, she decided to run away in order to give her child a chance of survival. It is a weird moment, her demeanor equally warm and cold, and she quickly sends him on his way once more, giving him another head start.
She creates a very specific type of child because Hayden Christensen's sister is played by Kristen Stewart.
Yeah, there's some heavy acting going on.
Those two could be actual siblings. But yeah, so we see what we thought was David's first jump when he was in the river, but it turns out that his first jump was actually when he was 5 years old. That's also when Griffin's first jump was.
Yeah.
So is it like a rite of passage type thing? Like 5 years old, you do this. 21 years old, you can drink.
5 years old, you can jump.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's like when their powers set in.
I was 5 years old. And also, if you're a paladin and your son is a jumper and your husband is Michael Rooker for some reason, no offense to him, but like weird. Why would you remain a paladin?
Yeah. It's blood in, blood out.
She still believes what she believes.
Yeah, because she's still going to hunt him. She gives him like this little flirtatious, I guess you're going to give you a head start.
I'm glad you said that. There is weird sexual tension between him and his mom. Oedipus.
Yeah. By the way, she lives in like a huge ass mansion on the Hudson that overlooks New York City.
It's so fancy that they had to green screen it because something like this doesn't exist.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And for some reason, her house in Ann Arbor with Michael Rooker was
like the
a little
worst
shithole.
one in the city. Like
Yeah.
it was worse than everybody else's.
And so I don't know how much a paladin makes. Do they steal too?
They must. Because, well, Roland Cox is able to just hop on private planes and has all this stuff going for him. So they must make some sort of money.
They have some sort of...
That alludes to the idea that they're bounty hunters.
Yeah.
Which means that there is other people paying for these jumpers.
Someone's funding them.
Yeah. God,
I guess. So dumb.
That is really stupid. And
again, it's never clear why the paladins do what they do. So it must be so important that you're willing to kill your own kids over it.
Yeah, and also
that's not very godly.
No, that Abraham.
That was a test,
and
though.
God was like, "Don't do it, dude."
Yeah.
But okay. So the relationship between him and Millie.
The relationships in bad movies. That's what makes them bad.
Yeah, you can really tell a bad movie if the relationships don't make sense. She was begging him to get out of her house. She was like, "Please leave me alone forever. You are a bad person. You're like a
bank
thief.
robber.
You're a bank robber."
Killer.
And then he pulls her into danger.
Yeah.
She has to save him.
Yeah.
Then he comes back, destroys her home. And then she's like, "I love you. I always have."
Yeah. She reciprocates that it's always been you.
Since we were little kids, it's always been you. Yeah. I'd be offended. I'm offended on her behalf.
Yeah. David leaves, meeting up with Millie. The two share some flirtatious banter before they jump out of sight. The end.
Yeah, so while David is talking to his mom, Millie's just standing outside.
Yeah.
Why even bring her? You can jump to her.
Yeah.
You could have just left her at her
And he
house.
walked through the snowy field to get to the house. He could have just jumped to the front door.
Yeah, you could see it.
Yeah, they showed him walking up.
The character of the mother should have not been a paladin. That's what I,
No,
that's what I think.
it served no purpose. Literally, she was in 2 scenes. She was in 3 scenes. One in the very beginning when it was like showing that he had a mom. Then it was her releasing him from the jail in Rome. Pointless.
Which was really, that made it worse.
Yeah, he should have just jumped out when they left the room. There was no point to put her there. She was literally a nonsense character. And then
It's like they forgot that he had superpowers.
yeah, and then Roland, it doesn't matter. Like he finds out and he does nothing. He finds out that maybe his partner or whatever, a fellow paladin, is the parent of a jumper, and he's just like, cool. She's not there to help destroy him. Are they hunting more than one jumper at a time?
Yeah, they're hunting all the jumpers.
Yeah, I know, but like, I really liked this movie when I was younger.
Yeah, it's a very important movie. It's very special to me. It's one of the
Yeah.
movies of my history.
Did we see it in movie theater?
I don't know if we saw it in theater, but I watched the shit out of it on DVD.
DVD, yeah.
All the time, Jumper and Shark Boy and Lava Girl. I'm sorry, Mom.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That was even younger, though. Jumper was like a middle school movie.
Jumper was sick. Who wouldn't want jumper powers?
I would still do. Again, they executed the powers well.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, they did. They did a really good job. I remember that there was like right around that same time, like right in the early 2010s, that like on like After Effects and stuff, people were like how to do the jumper power. Like that was a big thing, was people learning how to edit the jumper powers on After Effects and stuff.
Where they really went wrong was character. Because David Rice, he seemed like a mixed bag. Like, it's like, oh, he's cool, but he's too cool, first of all. He's too cool, but he's also sophisticated and sensitive. And he's in love with Millie, but he doesn't really care about anything. It's just like, why any of that? His mother makes zero sense. Her logic is stupid.
Michael Rooker served no purpose. They only really had 3 characters plus Samuel Jackson in the movie.
Well, and Millie had no character.
Millie, yeah.
She wanted to go to the cities. She wanted to go to a
She was
city.
just a yes man to him for some reason.
Yeah, she just did whatever he said. As soon as he showed a bit of aggression and violence, she was like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, sure, he stood up for her, but like, she doesn't know him. And
They got married.
They did get married.
Rachel Bilson and Hayden Christensen got married after this movie. Well, did they get married after this movie?
They were together.
They were
for
together
a long
for a
time.
long, like, on and
I think
off
they had
until
at least a kid.
like they had no kid. Yeah, and until like 2017. I know that they were engaged, and then their engagement got called off, and then they ended up getting married later and having a kid, and then they ended up getting split up in like 2017 or 2018.
That's sad.
Yeah.
I wish it could have worked out for Jumper's sake. But some fun facts about the movie. It's very different from the books. And they chose to do everything. They chose to do so much different from the books. In the books, her name was in the movie her name was Millie Harris. In the books, her name was Millie Harrison.
Oh.
Wow, profound change. Why even change it? Do you want to hear my favorite of the fun facts?
What?
So Hayden Christensen wasn't the first choice for David Rice.
Who was?
I feel like I want to build it up more. Marshall Mathers.
Eminem?
Yes, the first choice was Eminem.
They couldn't get him?
Well, apparently the director was like hard pushing. We want Eminem, we want Eminem, we want Eminem. And then
this is the same year 8 Mile came out, I think, right?
Yeah, so it was like Eminem's like hot right now. Like he's
Well,
big.
yeah, he's like the biggest artist in the world.
But
That would have been hilarious.
it's so funny. Starts rapping.
Yeah.
But no,
I think he would have done an all right job.
I guess like when the director like bumped into Hayden Christensen somehow and like he met and he was like, actually I think I want that guy. I want that guy. But the original
The director did not have very good instinct.
no. But I don't was Eminem a good instinct? Like I like Eminem, but I don't know if I'd be like he should star in the movie about teleportation. Yeah. Yeah.
Did he
But I
want
guess
to
he's
be
from
an
Michigan.
actor?
He's from Detroit.
He is from Michigan. But did Eminem want to be an actor? I know he did 8 Mile, but that was
that's
about his
him.
life.
Yeah, I don't know. That would have been so fun.
That would have been hilarious. It would have been really funny to see.
Imagine if he was great.
He could have been. I don't know if he. I haven't seen all of 8 Mile, but the clips I've seen, he did an all right job.
Yeah.
It's he's probably would have been better than Hayden Christensen.
Just the idea. I read that and I was like, oh my God.
That would have been really funny.
My least favorite part of the movie was the paladins. They were by far the sloppiest aspect of the movie. And it makes sense because they weren't in the book. They weren't part of the source material. Apparently the bad guys in the original one was actually the NSA. They're like, this guy's teleporting, he's doing bad stuff.
Makes sense.
But I guess the director or the screenwriter, whoever was in charge of it, was like, we want a historical jumper hunting crew that kills jumpers. And everyone was like, why do they do it? And they're like, the Bible. Which is like the easiest cop-out ever.
Yeah.
And the mother being a paladin was just beyond enraging for me. Why even do it?
Well, it served no purpose. And except to like maybe set up like this sequel.
Where she's hunting him?
Yeah.
I don't know. Kristen Stewart hunting him.
Speaking of sequel.
Now it's time for the sequel.
In the years following the Paladin attack of 2008, David Rice and Millie Harris lived their lives in a sexy, dangerous manner, jumping across the world at a whim. However, their whirlwind lifestyle was forced to come to a close after the remaining Paladins caught wind of the now notorious David Rice. In order to avoid detection, the jumper was forced to ground himself, he and his new wife settling down in plain sight in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Taking away his ability to jump and making a promise to never rob a bank again, David used some of his remaining cash to start a business.
Naming it Rice Bowl, David has become the proud owner and head chef of his very own Chinese restaurant, serving all sorts of yummy treats. Although initially facing some backlash in the community, the commotion has died down and is now just part of the town. But despite his passion for the Chinese cuisine, David feels incomplete.
The love he feels for Millie is something he has never experienced before, and for the first time in his life, he actually considers another person's feelings. For a long while, these emotions, be they love, who's to say, were the only things keeping him from jumping back into a life of action and awesomeness. That is until something else jumped into his life. David and Millie had sex again, and after a year of marriage, welcomed a daughter, Harriet, into the world.
She's fun and energetic, and David cares for her very much. She's the only thing that makes his everyday life exciting and joyous. And although she takes after her mother, there's one trait that she shares with her father. When she was 5 years old, Harriet experienced her very first jump.
This is a conflict of interest for the family, as they have to remain hidden, lest the Paladins will return and slaughter them. However, David feels as though preventing his daughter from learning how to jump will clip her wings and ruin her life. So going against his wife's wishes and taking just one aspect of his life back, David devises a plan. While Millie is at work as a travel agent, something she is very passionate about yet never gets to take part in, like Moses, David takes their child to kindergarten before driving himself to Rice Bowl for work.
However, after Harriet's jump, he changes his schedule. Instead of taking his daughter to school, he decides to take her to the Ann Arbor Public Library, leaving the restaurant closed for the day. From here, David teaches his daughter how to jump and what it means to be a jumper. But instead of teaching her all the good things that one can do with teleporting abilities, he teaches her how to steal shit.
It is the perfect plan. This way, he can teach her how to jump in and out of bank vaults and steal money, while simultaneously keeping his promise to his wife that he will never steal again. It's a win-win. So every day, the two begin their training. With the technology of modern day on their side, David is able to secure comm systems to use. With the voice of her father in her ear at all times, Harriet is instructed on what to do when she gets inside the bank. And it turns out, the kid is a natural.
As it turns out, all the Rice children are naturals, including Sophie, Kristen Stewart, who is David's half-sister. She's become a full-fledged paladin, training under the ruthlessness of her mother, Mary. The two stand in the bloodied wreckage of a recent massacre. Having butchered an entire family, they have a jumper tied in a web of electricity, whimpering in agony. Mary recites some biblical hokum about how the jumpers are evil and blames the jumper for the death of his family before ordering Sophie to plunge a sacrificial knife into the man's heart. He dies, and the two share a bonding moment. But the moment is cut short when another paladin, an underling of sorts with intern energy, arrives with news.
Heading to the Paladin Hangout, which lies beneath a church in New York City, Mary, Sophie, and the gang stare at the latest technological achievement of the Paladins. A large holographic globe hovers in the center of the room with hundreds of red blips coating the planet. The device is able to harness the power of satellites and plot devices to locate jump scars worldwide. revolutionizing the jumper killing industry. Not only does it track where a jump has occurred, but where the jump lands as well. Using this data, the Paladins will be able to determine points of interest as well as home bases of jumpers across the planet. Mary and Sophie take a quick note of the amount of blips appearing in Ann Arbor, Michigan, the hometown of David Rice, as does another Paladin.
After the attack of his home in 2008 and his fight with David Rice, the Paladin community assumed that he was killed in action. However, with Samuel L. Jackson also presumed dead, nobody would be able to identify the swagalicious, super boss-ass jumper known as Griffin. Hiding within their ranks, Griffin, clad in gray, gives a worrying glare as his coworkers declare that they will kill David Rice.
Meanwhile, we cut back to Ann Arbor and begin a montage following David and Harriet during their father-daughter excursions. The pair jump from bank to bank, hide cash in the couch cushions at home, lie to Millie, and go out for ice cream every day. The montage is played alongside Dirty Little Secret by All American Rejects because David has their CD constantly playing in his Ford Taurus. A lot of money accumulates and it gets to a point where the family will be well off for years to come. Harriet's college is paid for at the very least. David is passionate about his daughter's education due to the fact that he never finished high school, one of his greatest regrets of his life. But now is not the time for these thoughts. It is time for
one final heist. It's simple. Too simple, in fact. It's been right in front of them all along. The Bank of Ann Arbor. Easy in, easy out. Small, but full of cash. David, wearing a sick new Montclair coat from Nordstrom that he bought was stolen.
I added that for you. What?
I knew I didn't put Montclair. David, wearing a sick new Montclair coat from Nordstrom that he bought with stolen money, sits in the front seat of his Ford Taurus, instructing his daughter what to do from within. As Harriet jumps into the vault, however, she loses contact with her father.
I thought it would be funnier.
Sick Montclair coat.
I thought it would be funny. I almost
The
added
specificity is funnier.
Yeah.
Montclair fur coat.
Yeah. Breaking the window of the Ford Taurus, Mary hammers David in the side of the head with a standard issue Paladin nunchuck. His ear bleeds as the comm system flies onto the passenger seat floor. He cries out in pain as he is pulled from the vehicle by his sister, Sophie. There are several Paladins, each one wearing a gray mask to protect their identities. David, recovering from the ambush, is thrown to the ground, holding his head and only barely dodging an electrical blast from his half-sister. Regaining himself, David stands and begins his fight. It has been a while since he fought Paladins, and he is a bit rusty, taking hit after hit.
The fight takes place just outside the bank, and it isn't long before the commotion is noticed by the armed security. David is caught in an electrical snare, pinned against the hood of his car. It isn't looking good. But just as this happens, the security guard arrives on scene, gun drawn. His mouth opens beneath his Fu Manchu mustache and he orders them all to freeze. Calling them ninjas, he's afraid of the Paladins, and as he reaches for his radio, Sophie does not hesitate. Throwing the sacrificial knife into his chest, the officer cries in pain, squeezing the trigger of his gun and firing shots into the air. David, from within his snare, cries out in regret.
The gunshot is heard from inside the bank, and the employees go on high alert. Locking the doors, it is customary for them to bring all the patrons into the vault in order to assure their protection. Little do they know that there is a little thief in their midst.
Harriet, from within the vault, is freaking out. Crying for her father, whose comm is on the floor of the Taurus, she holds a bag of money, unsure what to do and very afraid. She hears the click of the locks as the vault door begins to open. However, as the people run inside for safety, she's gone.
Outside, David is still ensnared. Sophie and Mary show no regret for the murder, and his half-sister pulls the blade out of a dead security guard, wiping the blade clean, which in reality wouldn't prevent the spread of blood germs from person to person. She prepares to stab David. But just as the knife begins to slowly prick his chest, she is interrupted.
Not by a cop, not by David, and not by her own conscience, but by one of her comrades. Sparrow kicking the knife out of her hand and roundhouse kicking her in the face, one of the Paladins goes ballistic. Punching Mary in the nose, he knocks both of the women to the ground, quickly slicing David's restraints off. The two begin to throw punches at the other Paladins, subduing them before the rogue Paladin grabs David by the hand.
In an instant, they are no longer on the street of Ann Arbor, but on the head of a Sphynx. David, unable to get his bearings, gets halfway through asking what happened before the Paladin kicks him in the testicles. It's a really bad one. David nearly poops his pants, and he can feel the very weight of the universe in his lower stomach as he falls to the ground, void of breath. As he moans, the Paladin, in a very familiar British accent, says,
"That's for Chechnya, isn't it?"
Pulling off his ninja mask, he reveals himself as none other than Griffin.
David is shocked and happy and angry, and after a moment of rekindling, he remembers that he has a daughter. Reaching for his earcom, he realizes that it is gone. Griffin attempts to prevent him from going back, saying that it's too dangerous. However, David is persistent, jumping into the bathroom of the Ann Arbor bank. Coming outside, he is met with EMTs, police, and scared civilians. He overhears people talking about the events and the attack. Nowhere can he find his daughter. He walks into the bathroom, preparing to jump, but sitting on the baby changing station is Griffin. Griffin asks him what's going on, and he's blown away by David's admission. Not only does he think that having a family is stupid, he thinks it's irresponsible. Given his own background of mutilation and woe, Griffin is unable to predict anything other than the death of both Millie and Harriet. David thanks him for his help, but demands that he get out of his life forever. Griffin, hurt, tells him that he just threw away everything to protect David. His whole life of going on missions with paladins and picking them off one by one within their own organization is completely wrecked. He can never go back. But with standard sociopathic charm, David doesn't care and jumps back home. It is not a happy household at the moment.
With half of their belongings packed and a very angry wife, David returns home with his dick in his hand. One sec. With half of their belongings packed and a very angry wife, David returns home with his dick in his hand. He very clearly shit the bed on this one. After the incident in the bank, Harriet jumped home and told her mother everything, crying and scared and abandoned. It just so happened that they also received a letter from the bank saying that they are past due on payments for their business and that Rice Bowl is being forcefully shut down. Millie is pissed. David attempts to mend this crumbling situation using nothing but his words, his greatest attribute, but even that seems futile.
He and Millie have it out, and it's here that David understands the error of his way. Taking his own daughter away from her life to relive his glory days, lying to his wife, and putting the people close to him in harm's way once again. It's a devastating blow, and he realizes that he doesn't deserve this family, and they could probably be safer far away from him. David stands in the suburban street of Ann Arbor watching his entire life fade away with the distant taillights. Because they left.
Meanwhile, Griffin has gone back on the run. The Paladins are now on high alert and he has no choice but to go to his stereotypical runaway location, Tokyo. However, upon his arrival in the Japanese city, he sees a ghost. Standing in the middle of the street, seemingly expecting his arrival, is none other than Roland Cox, Samuel L. Jackson. Covered in scars and holding a sword, he calls out to Griffin, mockingly, expectantly, and malevolently. Griffin, caught off guard, asks what he's doing here. Roland chuckles, walking closer to Griffin and regaling him in a story.
Given his paladin background of religion and spirituality, he asks Griffin if he knows about Jesus. Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness with nothing but the devil and temptation, coming out unfazed on the other side. Roland explains that he thought he might have been Jesus, but it turns out he's the devil.
Griffin pulls back a punch and throws it at Roland, but in an instant, he is gone. For a split second, Griffin looks around in confusion before a sword fires out of his chest. Griffin cries out in agony as Roland ignites his weapon, sending electricity through the blade.
Whoa. Roland pulls the sword out of Griffin's body and allows the jumper to fall to the ground. Griffin, through coughs of blood, calls Roland a monster. Roland pulls a vial from his leather trench coat and fills it up with Griffin's blood, which pools on the ground. Roland says that he is not a monster, but a jumper. He takes a sip of Griffin's blood with a smirk before vanishing out of thin air.
David, with nowhere else to turn, decides to backtrack across his life. Before his family, before the action, he goes to the one place that he could truly call home. After a nervous knock on the door, David looks into the eyes of his father, Michael Rooker. It is a complicated affair, and the two have a lot of catching up to do. And it turns out they don't have much time at all, for Michael Rooker is dying. The two share a good day of father-son bonding, and it seems as though the pain of the past has been undone.
Back in the Paladin headquarters, Mary and Sophie licked their wounds and cursed themselves for their foiled plan. They refused to believe that David Rice could be in Ann Arbor, Michigan, or even the United States, and they used their Paladin tech to try and hunt him down via the jump scars. And luckily enough, they're able to detect a jump dyad in downtown Tokyo, meaning that two jumpers were there together. That must have been David and the mole that helped him escape. Mary asks where it is that they went from here. The technician does his best to calculate, only to discover that one of the jumpers landed right outside. Boom!
An explosion rocks the Paladin lair. Fire and blood is everywhere. Mary lays on her back, blood pouring from the gash in her forehead, when in jumps Roland Cox. She thought he was dead, a fact that makes his blood boil. Not one search party, not one friend, not one lover.
There's history here. Romantic history. Roland, enraged at the secrets that Mary has kept about her identity and her son, declares that the Paladins are even more corrupt than those they have sought to destroy, and he is a harbinger of destruction that will cleanse the world of jumpers and paladins alike, but not without help. Crying out for Sophie, Kristen Stewart, she holds her bruised ribs and makes her way over to the sword-toting villain. A tear rolls down Mary's face as she cries, "You can't take my daughter." To which Roland replies, "Don't forget, Mary. She's my daughter too, motherfucker." In a flash, he's gone, and so is Sophie, leaving Mary battered and bruised on the floor, all alone amongst the wreckage of her life.
Back in Ann Arbor, David and Michael Rooker continue mending their relationship. David confides in his father and tells him how big of a screw-up he is and how his family is no doubt better without him. How he's a bad husband and a bad restaurant owner, and he apologizes for the hell that he put Michael Rooker through for so many years.
Michael Rooker cracks open a beer and takes a swig of forgiveness, saying that there was only one thing that kept him going each and every day, and that was the idea that his son, David, was alive. And like his son, he too felt as though his family would be better off without him. And up until recently, he was right. His only wish would be to see his wife's face one more time. And like the answer to a prayer, a ring is heard at the door.
There, standing on the porch with a rip in her forehead and a nunchuck on her waist, is none other than Mary Rice. She and her husband share a look of missed decades and bygone excuses before she turns to her son and says, "He's back."
Millie and Harriet stand in line at the ticket kiosk at an Amtrak station. Harriet asks her mom where her daddy is. Millie does not reply. After receiving their tickets, the two get on the overnight train and take their seats. It's the middle of the night. Harriet is fast asleep, but Millie looks out the window, tears running down her face. She thinks of David, of Rome, of the life they share, and how badly he betrayed her. But the reminiscing is cut tragically short by a man standing on the side of the tracks. Beneath a street lamp, she sees the face of Roland Cox smirking at her, waving as if he was expecting her. He suddenly teleports out of sight. She remembers this man and what he put her through only a few years prior. Assuming it's some kind of nightmare, she pinches herself, to no avail. Waking up Harriet, Millie begins to run through the train, going from cart to cart. Roland is in hot pursuit, jumping in and out of the cars. In one of the carts, located in the center of the train, Millie looks up to see Sophie coming after them as well, holding a paladin nunchuck. As they turn to run in the opposite direction, they smash directly into the cool leather of Roland's jacket. The ex-paladin smiles as he grabs the two of them and jumps out of sight.
Locked in cages in a dingy subterranean lair, Millie wakes up to see her daughter imprisoned across the room from her. The walls are lined with jars and vials of crimson liquid, and Polaroid pictures of various places line every surface. Roland wishes her a good morning as he wipes down the blade of his electro sword. After a few small talk points about kidnapping and attempted murder, Millie brings up the elephant in the room. He is a jumper.
Roland laughs and tells Millie his tale of disaster and woe. Spending years on his own, escaping the cave that David imprisoned him in, he wound up living on the streets as a beggar in many lands. He spent his days in a fog, until finally, he met someone like himself. A paladin, or something like it, in Bangladesh. The man hired Roland as a mercenary to track down a jumper and execute him. Traveling far into the mountains to find the jumper, he and the man finally took him down, swiftly executing him, but not before tragedy struck. In the conflict, their vehicle was destroyed, along with their walkie-talkies and food supply. They were stranded, just as a storm was moving in. Taking shelter in a nearby cave, they stayed there for weeks. Filling their canteens with snow, they were able to hydrate after the precipitation melted. But their hunger became overwhelming. The cave seemed to close in. There was a stink of violence in the air. It was a kill-or-be-kill environment. It was either Roland or the stranger, and after all this time, Roland wasn't going to let himself die. So when the conflict finally began, it was a bloody one. Two men, weak and fatigued from starvation, beating one another to death. Roland sustained several new scars, including a chunk of his ear ripped from his head. But finally, he was able to execute his opponent with a rock. In an adrenaline-fueled act of mania, Roland began his feast. He ate a man. And for the first time in weeks, he felt okay. But that didn't last long. The snow continued and the starvation occurred once more. There was no other options. Roland would surely die here. That is, until he stumbled over something in the snow one morning. A saving grace he forgot he had left, the body of the jumper. Perfectly preserved and refrigerated in the snow, decay hadn't set in, meaning the man was perfectly ready to eat. The jumper tasted different than the assassin. He couldn't quite place what it was, but it was more distinct, almost gamey. But there was something else that set the two apart. For in the cave, after eating the jumper, he fell into a deep sickness. The walls warped, sweat covered his face, and when he woke, he was no longer in the cave, but halfway across the world. Walking through the empty bedrooms of the condemned orphanage that he called home, he realized the gravity of his situation. That he jumped Walking through the empty bedrooms of the condemned orphanage that he called home, he realized the gravity of his situation, that he jumped. In his act of desperate cannibalism, Roland discovered that consuming the blood of a jumper gives you their powers.
And seemingly proving his point, Sophie jumps into frame. Having undergone her sickness phase, she is now a jumper as well. With this nice little prize, they will find the man that cursed Roland and be rid of him. Then he will move to his plan of world domination.
Back in Ann Arbor, David, Michael Rooker, and Mary have a family reunion, but it's short-lived. When Michael Rooker looks into the eyes of his wife again, something inside him is complete, and he dies there in David's arms. As he passes away, Michael Rooker whispers to him that family is the most important thing on earth and to never, ever, under any circumstances, let it go. Then, leaving him in his favorite worn-out recliner, David and his mother run away from Michael Rooker one final time and set out for Roland Cox.
Thankfully, it is pretty easy to find him, as he and Sophie have taken over the White House and plan to launch nuclear missiles in order to destroy the modern world. In its ashes, they shall create a new society with Roland Cox as the supreme overlord and his daughter Sophie, played by Kristen Stewart, as his heir and right-hand man.
The president shudders in fear and the world is on edge as David and Mary Rice jump inside the White House and begin their battle.
Inside Roland's lair, Millie and Harriet are still locked in their cages. However, Millie has a plan, whispering to her daughter to jump out of the cage. Harriet teleports temporarily for freedom, but unfortunately, as she jumps out, a chained dog wakes from its slumber and charges at her. Harriet must run away from the dog, no doubt developing some sort of trauma as she does so. Millie screams from within her cage as the pit bull attacks.
David dodges swing after swing of Roland's electro sword as the two of them begin their jump battle. Sophie is forced to fight her own mother, and the two of them battle over the nuclear launch button on the president's desk. Though Sophie is a jumper, she now has created her own Achilles heel, the standard issue electro nunchucks wielded by her mother. It's a wild battle on both ends, and Roland and David jump all across the planet. Landing in a medieval museum, David grabs a sword and the two of them duel with their blades. It's an awesome single-cut chase scene as they jump from place to place to place while sword fighting. Finally, they land in Lake Maracaibo in the country of Venezuela. Spoiler alert, this is the place on Earth that receives the most lightning blasts. That's important information going forward.
In Roland's lair, Harriet is run into a corner, the rabid dog leaping at her throat. But as its wet nose touches her, Harriet jumps, seemingly programmed into her biological code. She finds herself in the river outside of Ann Arbor, the dog floating after her. The dog's chain is hooked on a rock and is caught beneath the waves. Harriet jumps back, letting the dog drown, something she'll probably do in the future as well. Landing in Roland Cox's lair, she releases her mother and the two begin their escape. Running outside, it is revealed that they were in a bunker in the middle of a mountain in Bangladesh, the place Roland ate a man. They have no idea where to go, and she asks Harriet to jump them away. She tells her to take she tells her to take her to Daddy. And as it turns out, that is her jumper power. Griffin can jump moving objects. Harriet can jump to people, no matter where they are.
This is so stupid. Unfortunately, David is not in a very cash money place. Landing near the Venezuelan lake, they appear almost in between the clashing blades of David and Roland. Roland, seizing an opportunity, snatches Harriet, holding the sword up to her neck. It seems as though it's all over. David lets out a tremendous Hayden Christensen scream as Millie begs him to let her go. Roland says, "You took everything from me. It's time I return the favor." Charging up his electro sword, Harriet bites Roland's hand, causing him to let her go and wail in agony. He raises his sword into the air, about to swing it into her when she teleports away. In a split second, he is filled with a little bit of confusion, and then a whole lot of electricity as a blast of lightning shoots from the sky into the conductor that he's holding into the air. As he convulses, he is incapable of jumping, and, seeing an opportunity to end this once and for all, David charges, plunging his sword into the chest of Roland Cox and tackling him off his feet. Just before they hit the ground, David teleports the two of them underwater. Somewhere deep in the Atlantic Ocean, David pushes Roland away from him, his sword still in the man's chest. Blood stains the ocean like gallons of red water paint. David gives a corny two-finger salute and teleports away. Just as he vanishes, a great white shark charges through the bubbles that he left behind and bites into Roland's flesh. A crazed feeding frenzy transpires where shark after shark dine on the delicious Samuel L. Jackson.
David lands back in Venezuela with Millie, and the two have their I love you moment once more, even though David's bad decision-making has gotten them into trouble yet again. He hasn't fixed anything or changed for the better, but everything's fixed. Yay! After a moment, Harriet emerges from behind a rock and the two share a family moment. After what his father told him about family, this is a very important win for David. But his family is still in trouble, so like the bad husband and father he is, David teleports his whole family to the White House.
When they land in the White House, Mary has Sophie on the ropes, but unfortunately David's arrival causes a distraction long enough to allow Sophie to plunge her blade into Mary's heart. Mary falls, and in an instant, Sophie reaches for the big red launch button on the president's desk. In order to save the world, David uses all of his might, and in a miraculous turn of events, jumps the entire White House. Landing on the head of the Sphynx once more, the White House teeters slightly in the wind. Sophie regains her balance and once again lunges at the red button. This time, however, she hits it. But nothing happens. With the wires and systems disconnected from their power sources, her plan is foiled, and now frightened, Sophie attempts to jump. But she is stopped by the electric cable from her mother's nunchucks. Firing it from the floor, Mary uses her final bit of strength to coil her daughter before she falls unconscious. David, seeing his mother dying now, must act fast.
With Millie and Harriet holding on, David jumps to the hospital where an emergency blood transfusion is carried out. The only one with the same blood type is David, and they begin the process instantly. Thankfully, Mary survives. However, it alters David forever. With his blood given to Mary, he can no longer jump. He is just like everybody else. But it's not so bad to be stuck in one place, as long as family can be there with you. David reopens Rice Bowl, and due to their tumultuous relationship, he and his mother say their final goodbyes. She has to learn how to be a jumper and has to find Sophie, who escaped the White House before the authorities could get to her. The world of jumpers lives on, but not for David Rice. Instead, he is excited to live a life of parenthood, and although he can't jump there himself, David will always be standing on top of the world.
The end. There you have it, Jumper 2. But that's not all, folks.
No.
For we have a scene, a very important
Our
high-stakes...
favorite scene in the sequel to Jumper.
It's very high stakes, it's very dramatic, it's very sexy, so buckle up and get ready.
Interior Rice Bowl day. A customer walks into Rice Bowl. He is Asian American.
Hello, welcome to Rice Bowl.
The customer sees David and is slightly taken aback. Oh, is this the Chinese restaurant?
Yeah, it is.
The guy looks around for a second, still slightly confused.
Would you like anything?
Yeah, could I get like an order of General Tso's?
We don't have General Tso's.
I thought it was a Chinese restaurant.
Yeah, that's an Americanized dish. We're an authentic Chinese restaurant.
Oh, okay. Then could I get some crab rangoons?
Yeah, we don't have that.
There is a pause. The traditional Chinese music can be heard playing in the background. On second thought, I don't really think I'm that hungry. Could I just get a fortune cookie?
Those are American too, not traditional Chinese.
Another customer walks into Rice Bowl.
Hello, welcome to Rice Bowl.
The customer looks at David and then around at the entirety of his environment. I think I'm gonna go.
Okay, Zaijian.
What?
It's goodbye in Chinese.
The customer stares at David.
Next. Thank you guys so much for tuning in for our episode of Jumper 2.
Yes, I hope you liked our sequel. It was either this or a spoof on Billy Madison for Jumper because he never went to high school.
Stop looking at me, Swan.
Hayden Christensen sang some iconic lines from Adam Sandler's Billy Madison.
It's too damn hot for a penguin to be walking around here.
Pee in your pants is the coolest.
I'm glad I called that guy. Never seen a blue duck. Business ethics.
Make out with you. No, I will not make out with you. Shampoo is better. It goes on first and cleans the hair.
No, conditioner is better. It makes the hair silky and smooth. Let us know if you guys have any ideas by reaching out to us on thebrowerbrothers@gmail.com.
Scene.